Hello and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Waypoint, episode 404, except unlike that webpage you were searching for, this episode has been found. Have I been waiting 7¾ years to make that joke? Let's not talk about it. I did briefly consider, would it be funny to end the Weekly Waypoint at episode 403 and just say absolutely nothing about not continuing the series, and then episode 404 is the episode that's not found. And then I realized I like making this series too much and I don't want to end it, so that's why that didn't happen. But it was on the cards. It wasn't on the cards, but you know what I mean. Today, you may have noticed we're playing The Elder Scrolls Online, which has been absent from the channel for a little while. I haven't really played since 2024, but eagle-eyed viewers and fans of the channel since I last did Elder Scrolls videos may notice something even more curious. This is the PC version of the game, not the Xbox version of the game, which I've been playing exclusively since 2020. Back in 2020, when I got my Xbox Series S and I was all in on the whole Xbox situation, I got very excited about picking up the Elder Scrolls Online over Game Pass and continuing my adventures over on console, starting over on a new account and building up my account from scratch. Hell, I probably talked about it on the Weekly Waypoint. It's been going long enough. But now we find ourselves in a timeline or a future where I'm not particularly pleased with Microslop and I do not really play my Xbox anymore. I do not want to pay Xbox Game Pass subscription prices just to be able to play the base ESO game with expansions that I've already purchased with my own money. And so I made the gargantuan task of freeing up 150 gigabytes of free space to re-download the PC version. And this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. It's not exactly something that I've not been able to do, you know. I just never really saw the need. And again, it seemed like a kind of a gargantuan task because of the download size. But there is something very nostalgic and cathartic about returning to the PC version of this game. It almost feels like coming home in a way. I was initially put off at the prospect of essentially losing all progress since Greymore, right? Since 2020, I have not touched this account at all. And so I don't have a companion level, I don't think I had any sets collected, because I think this was before they implemented that system. There's a whole bunch of stuff I'm just missing, and especially when it comes to story completion and achievements, obviously I haven't done Blackwood, I haven't done High Isle, haven't done any of it. How does that feel returning to it on PC? It feels like an opportunity to play more ESO. I was really worried it was going to feel like this weird mismatched thing, or like I was missing a whole chunk of progress and it was going to feel like a chore to redo it. I don't even know if I'm going to go out of my way to redo it immediately, but actually I'm just struck with the thought of playing through these stories again isn't the worst thing in the world. It's something I would probably do on an alt anyway at some point. And building up my collections from scratch just makes the game feel really rewarding because I have so many items to deconstruct and put in my set sticker book. Of course, I am missing a bunch of DLCs, but ESO Plus nets me those, so yes, I am technically still giving Microslop money, but less money than I otherwise could be. We will settle for that. And so we shelve Brakosh for now, my awesome Dragon Knight, and we return to the adventures of Voltaeus Valconda, my Dunmeri sorcerer. Although, you may notice, he's not called that anymore. He's called something much better. He's called Arceus Ulvani, which is a much more lore-friendly name with, I believe, a similar tone. The name Voltaeus Valconda has been bothering me for years, even when I haven't been playing the game, so I'm glad I finally got that changed. This is the third name that this character has now had. I don't remember what his original name is. It might have just been Kritigri. I honestly don't remember. Might have been something to do with Conduit. I honestly don't know. But there are some perks as well of returning to my PC account because I did spend some microtransactional money over the years on this thing. You know, mostly through just my ESO Plus Crown allotments. But there's stuff I have I forget his name, but I have a bank guy I can summon whenever I like to use my bank. Not quite as much of a perk as you might expect, because, I don't know, ESO Plus is a thing and the Infinite Crafting Bag is a thing, but still, it's nice to have. And I have, I believe it's called Gardner House in one of the Breton cities. And it's pre-furnished, which I was surprised to find out, although I think I did recall all the furniture and redecorate it to my own liking at one point. Do kind of regret getting that, but I am glad that it is now, something I can go and visit again. And then there's stuff like I was playing around the time that they gave away an absolutely giant house that is worth £75 in crowns, which is insane. They do overcharge for their housing stuff in this game, I must say, but still, it's one of the biggest houses you can get in the game, and they gave it away for free for mad lads. I'm still a little intimidated by it in terms of even beginning to decorate it, but I am tickled a little bit by the fact that I have this giant manor in Arteum that I can just run around at any point and decorate to my heart's content. Now let's talk about ESO the game instead of just juggling my own accounts. Because for anyone familiar with ESO, it might seem a little bit weird that I'm just now getting back into the game, because the game isn't in a very good place, unfortunately. It did not have the best 2025. I did a good thing in skipping that year, apparently, because up until 2024, they were doing these yearly chapter releases, these big zone story DLC combinations with dungeons at certain intervals. They were starting to slow down on it a little bit, but obviously we still had Necrom, and then we had the Infinite Archive, which wasn't necessarily a zone, but it was still like a pretty big PvE DLC for the second half of that year. And then we had Gold Road, which I've actually not played. Actually, it might have been 2023 the last time I played in that case. But they had a very ill-fated 2025 year when they decided to do this thing called a content pass, which looked a lot like a chapter, except it cost more monetarily. ESO Plus, I believe, did not get access to it when they normally would. They hyped up this big event, which apparently was an absolute dud. ESO's just still smarting a bit from 2025, unfortunately. And at first glance, their 2026 plans don't look great. Their big selling point for 2026 is that they are shifting to seasons with a battle pass. Hooray! Who doesn't want that? And yeah, I made some offhand remarks earlier in the year when I saw that announcement about how, well, ESO is still having a bad time of it. I'm not going to return to it, so on and so forth. I have obviously since changed my mind. Why is that? Well, first and foremost, I'm kind of returning to ESO for the game that it already is, instead of what they're promising for the next year of content, right? I've got Gold Road to catch up on, and I've got to figure out subclassing and all this stuff. That is something I forgot to mention about this footage. I'm still getting back into the swing of things. I'm not necessarily using an optimal build or class. I'm not necessarily playing properly. I'm just having a fun time, okay? Don't at me! But yeah, the neat thing about ESO is it's always been quite an additive horizontal MMO, by which I mean it's designed in such a way that they're not, making older content obsolete. They're just adding to the amount of content that you can choose to go and do that's relevant at any level, much like Guild Wars 2. So yeah, basically I'm returning for the existing game, not the promise of new content for this game. I just haven't played in a long time, and I want to get my PC account up to date, and I want to have lots of high level characters and all this stuff. I just want to play ESO basically. However, I did sit and watch through the developer live stream of them talking at length in detail about their plans for 2026, and it wasn't a great live stream. They came across as quite nervous, and they said a lot of very corporate things which made me feel a bit icky. Stuff like that makes me not trust it when they say that they've got a big future for the game, like they're still releasing the same amount of content, just in a different way, and I don't know, a lot of it felt a little pandery slash, stuff I've heard before from MMOs which are in a bad spot. This ain't my first rodeo. However, the more I looked into the details of what they're doing for 2026, the more I did find things to be excited about. First and foremost, they are continuing with narrative content. They're adding a continuation of the Thieves Guild story, I believe, or just an addition to the Thieves Guild story, and they're doing some sort of storyline around Shir Gorath. I'm still slightly cynical about it, because I'm like, is it going to be scaled back? It doesn't seem to be paired with a new zone or anything, like, what's the actual quality of these quests going to be? But whatever, they're adding those, and that sounds like fun. They're also doing a limited time zone, which I hate. I hate that so much. They're doing a limited time zone called the Night Market, and they're making it like a group content kind of a zone, which sounds annoying. and it's going to be here in spring and gone in summer, but don't worry because it will return in winter, and it will return fairly frequently, and they may even consider making it permanent. Guys, just make it permanent, for God's sake. Microtransaction stuff aside, that is probably my biggest eye roll, but they're shifting their monetary aims away from narrative content itself, so the Thieves Guild stuff will be free for all players to go and play, which is new. That's cool, I guess. Nice one. But obviously they're still going to be making money somehow. So yeah, their Battle Pass, it has a free tier, and you get like a bunch of crown crates through it, and you get a bunch of cosmetics and stuff through it. And honestly, the free stuff sounds pretty generous compared to other Battle Passes. And then the premium one, if you do buy the premium tier, you don't have to complete it by a certain time. You can complete it at your own pace. It will always be available to you. You do have to buy it while it's first available, but that is the kind of thing that I applaud a little bit, because one of the reasons why Battle Passes can be exhausting and annoying and bad is because of FOMO mechanics, and this seems to be avoiding that somewhat. It's not perfect. I would still prefer it if they were just perpetually available at any tier, but I do prefer this way compared to the way most people do it. So that actually has me going, okay, I might actually pay attention to this. It might be fun. And I did look at some of the cosmetics they're offering, and you know, in the past I have enjoyed playing through Battle Passes in games. Mostly Fortnite. I did play Fortnite a little bit a few years ago, and I did find that I enjoyed the experience of progressing a Battle Pass and unlocking new cosmetics and stuff. You know, then you've got the whole problem of this is kind of a subscription thing on top of an optional subscription with ESO Plus. They're doing a weird thing where if you subscribe to ESO Plus for 12 months, doesn't have to be 12 consecutive months, but just on your 12th month, you get a token which allows you to claim a free premium Battle Pass. Or I think they're calling them Tomes of Tamriel or whatever. And it looks like they're aiming for 3 seasons a year, so I guess the idea is 1 in every 3 seasons. If you're a constant player / subscriber to the game, you're gonna get one of those seasons for free. And that's like the premier tier, so it's got like the cosmetic associated with it as well. Sure, it kind of feels like a half measure, but I guess if they're shifting their monetization away from buying story content, then they've got to make money somehow, I guess. Shrug. Honestly, a lot of this stuff is just going to be see how it plays out. It could be awful, but after watching the stream I realized it could be semi-decent. It could be halfway decent, because it did sound like, the way they were talking about the development cycle of the chapters, it did sound like they were getting burnt out. It did sound like it was becoming unsustainable, and so, you know, if it's healthier for the devs, then sure. But I have also been seeing people being paranoid about the idea of, like, is the game going into maintenance mode? Is this them paring back development cycles for the game in the name of, like, laying off staff and trying to make more money out of the game with less content and so on and so forth? And that is also a legitimate concern, because Microsoft did kind of attack ZeniMax Online Studios last year and cancel their upcoming game. And I think I am gonna miss the big, here's where we're going and what we're doing this year story things. The way they've been talking about it is that they might still have some of those years. It's just not gonna happen every year. So I can get behind that. Like, if like maybe every 2 years you get like a big story expansion with a new zone that you go to and everything, and I'm talking story expansion in the traditional sense of, like, you know, the type of zone size that we're used to. It's not like some temporary FOMO limited time event bullshit that they're doing. That I would be more on board for. So yeah, my outlook on the future of ESO, I'm wary. However, ESO has had many great years of past content updates, and it has a ton of gameplay available, and you know, if it doesn't work out for new stuff in the future, then at least we've still got the old stuff to go play. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, one of the best things about the upcoming year of updates, especially this upcoming update 49 I believe it is ton of quality of life updates, which look like they're really going to affect the game in a positive way. And when I first heard, like, focus on quality of life updates, I rolled my eyes a bit, because that sounds like, you know, small stuff compared to a big story and zone expansion, right? But they've got stuff like reducing costs for increasing your bag and bank space, adding quests to go and get a vampire bite or a werewolf bite instead of it being like a crown store thing or a player trading thing. They're making it so you can completely respec your character within the UI for free at any time. They're making it so you can train your mount 3 times in a single go instead of once, which is still very slow but much better than it was. They're increasing furnishing limits, they're making quicker crafting research, they're doing a whole bunch of stuff. And it's small things and seemingly unexciting sounding things, but they add up, and when you're actually in the game and you're playing and you're thinking about those upcoming improvements, they do sound pretty good. So yeah, those are pretty much all my thoughts regarding catching up with ESO. As you can tell, it's on the brain. But ESO isn't all that I've been doing this week. What else have I been playing? Well, World of Warcraft The Burning Crusade Classic 20th Anniversary Edition opened this week, and that sounds like an absolute mouthful, and it's because it is. It's a mess. But it came out, and I remembered, hey, I quite like TBC. I quite like that version of Classic. It's a little bit more soloable in terms of a leveling experience. It's not quite as slow. You can be a Draenei and a Blood Elf. There's Outland waiting for you at the final 10 levels of the game. I love TBC, I might as well get in while the getting is good, right? So I made a Blood Elf Paladin. She's currently level 9, but I'm having a pretty good time playing that. I don't know how much attention I'm actually going to give to it, given that I'm now playing ESO and the WoW Midnight expansion pre-patch drops next week, so or I guess this week. So I don't know how much more time I'm going to put into that immediately, but I figured, hey, I might as well just get some leveling done and have a good time. Would it have been a wiser move to instead focus on the level 22 character I already have? Don't talk to me. The other thing is, okay, if you've ever watched my videos about my favourite childhood games on PS1 and PS2 growing up, you'll know I have a thing for arcade racing games of that kind of an era. And a few weeks ago, when I was playing Old School Rally on the Weekly Waypoint, I did mention that I had a desire for more of this kind of thing, of indie developers making these kinds of racing games from this kind of an era. Well, I kind of discovered that that is already happening. I discovered the indie arcade racing micro niche on Steam, and I'm trying not to just drop all my money on all of the games, but I added a lot of games to my wishlist this week, and I did pick up one. I picked up Super Woden GP, which came out in 2023, and it's kind of like if Gran Turismo was an isometric racing game. It's very much structured like Gran Turismo. It's got the whole, you know, like city map with UI icons that you flip between, and you've got different car dealerships to go and buy cars from, and you've got your garage, and the idea is you buy multiple different cars of different kind of specs and performances, and certain cups and tournaments only allow certain specs of cars in them. And it's just very Gran Turismo in terms of presentation, and I really like that. There is a Super Woden GP2. I figured I'd pick up the first one and play through that first, because if I pick up the second one and really enjoy it, it'll probably be difficult to go back and enjoy the first one. As far as I understand, the second one does have the ability to, like, upgrade your car. The first one does not. But they also just this week released their Rally spin-off title, Super Woden something or other. You can probably find it. Super Woden Rally Edge, there we go. And that's kind of how I found these games. I just happened to see it in the new releases and go, ooh! So yeah, Super Woden GP probably would have been this week's Weekly Waypoint footage if I hadn't got sidetracked by ESO. Might be next week's. I also discovered New Star GP, which is a Formula 1 looking racing game in a retro style. Kind of the exact thing I requested back in my Old School Rally Weekly Waypoint. I was talking about wanting one of those kinds of games. There's also Circuit Superstars, which is another isometric style kind of racing game. And those same developers are also working on a title called iRacing Arcade, which looks to be a spin-off of the iRacing simulation racing brand, except made by those game devs. It's kind of the same looking game as Circuit Superstars, except it does look a bit nicer and a bit more upgraded, so curious about that too. There's also some like chibi style Formula 1 arcade racing game that I saw around. I didn't put that on my wish list, but I was a little tempted to. I actually own a game like that they did many years ago. It's probably delisted by now, but this game looks like it's made by different devs, or it's completely different in some way. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of where my head's at. I really want to explore these kind of indie racing titles. I think they will really appeal to me, and maybe we'll explore them together on the Weekly Waypoint over the next few weeks, months, or years. But anyway, that's going to do it for this very ESO heavy episode of a Weekly Waypoint. Thanks for sticking around, especially if you're not into ESO or MMO talk. But thanks for watching. Please leave a like if you liked the video, and I will catch you in whatever I make next.